Hello, everybody, and welcome to the show today. I'm really glad you could join us. Today, we're talking about digital marketing. We're talking about all things digital marketing, everything you need to know to make this an explosive part of your business growth. Okay, look, I can tell you that we spend a lot of money on places like Facebook and Google Ads, and I can also tell you that it's one of the most important factors to create a highly scalable, profitable business. And with us today to dive into this is Marty McDonald. Now, Marty is a co-founder and the CEO of Bad Rhino Incorporated, a full-service social media marketing agency. And since 2002, Marty has consulted with small businesses and startups to help them succeed online with digital marketing. Now, Bad Rhino is a full-service social media marketing and digital agency founded in 2011. Today, it serves clients locally, nationally, and all over the globe. And one of the reasons that Bad Rhino has grown to be so successful so quickly is due to their ability to develop utterly unique and highly customized strategies that create incredible exposure for their clients' businesses. Their full service approach means they not only create these amazing strategies and plans, but they also implement them and manage them day to day, including delivering messages to their customers. So Marty, thanks for coming on and joining us today.
Hey, thanks, Ty. I appreciate it. I've been looking forward to this for a couple of weeks now, so I'm really happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to having you on, man. I'm excited to have you here because this is important. We spend a lot of money on digital, and I know there's a lot of people
Sure.
that this is still a mystery. So let's talk about that to begin with. What do you see the importance of digital marketing is in today's landscape?
Well, that's a great question. And doing it like in the intro, and it was like since 2002, you feel like a dinosaur sometimes when you're talking about things that how they've evolved and where they've come from. And, for me, it started out as a hobby and then eventually became the agency. But today in 2020, it's fascinating to see the changes and how fast. And people always say, well, that technology is always changing fast. It's actually changing faster and faster. And what I mean by that is, like, television to me is almost 100% dead in terms of advertising. Now, if you're on the Super Bowl, if you're high profile events, there's still some viability there. But almost like day-to-day stuff, TV has switched to a digital format, and it's just in your Roku and your top of your Amazon Prime and on your smart TVs and all that. So like all that's encompassing on digital. So if you ignore digital, you're going to have some difficulty, not only now, but in the coming years. And you don't have to spend a ton of money. I like that you're always forthright with that and talking about it, because I think that's important for people to understand that you can't just jump in for free anymore. When we first started Bad Rhino, a good chunk of our campaigns were just 100% organic. You can't do that anymore, right? It was fun because you could make things dance a little bit. You could get people's attention by posting really good content. Now you can do some of that if you have a large audience, but you want to put some dollars behind it and actually have a strategy. So if you're still doing print, you're still doing TV, you're still doing radio, your digital just become some sort of strategy and the glue that keeps it all together.
That's awesome. What about in the pandemic? A lot of things are changing with COVID-19 across the business landscape. How's that
Yep.
impacted digital marketing?
It's actually increased the spend. Most companies are spending more right now. Now, there's some that have to cut back because they're not in business, right? Restaurants, bars, that sort of stuff. But the ones that are in there, or they have a bunch of money on the sideline because all their events were canceled, they've dumped it into digital. And we've seen a very big uptick in the last 4 months, almost 5 months now, where people are coming back to us and saying, okay, we want to launch this. This is brand new for us. Or if they're current clients, they've been expanding. We had about 2 weeks into it where everyone was like, all right, hold on, we don't know what's going on in the world. And then since then, it's actually been a ramp up. And what we've seen with current clients and people that we're having conversations with is they want to test new things. Where 8 months ago, they were like, hey, we're going to write out 2020. Things are good. We have things going on. We have our events. We have some other things that are going on. When those were all wiped out for their sales arms, they needed something to bring in leads, and things didn't completely stop for every single company, but they needed to look at different alternatives. And I guess now they decided, hey, we're going to go all in on this. And it's been wild on multiple levels. But I think the big thing that I can say and I can stress is many people are revamping not only their websites, but their digital plans, and then putting everything into, ad spend into digital ways.
Makes sense. What about cost? And when
Yeah.
people hear that, they think supply and demand. And if the demand is high, then we think the cost is high. So is it still feasible to run affordable campaigns with so many people jumping into digital?
It is. Now that's the easy answer. The first answer is yes. However, if you only have everything else set up, which is what the challenge was at the very beginning of this. So you had doctors, lawyers, kind of the usual suspects that don't update their technology on a regular basis. And then they wanted to jump in and say, yeah, that now is a good time for us to get out there because we want to let people know that we can take, Zoom appointments and other things. And they didn't have the infrastructure set up. So that was step one, was like, all right, we have to back up because you're not capable of doing this the proper way. And you have to be compliant and all that. The cost at first for almost everybody like skyrocketed, like not right away. It actually dropped for about a week and a half, 2 weeks in mid-March. That was like, we were seeing like crazy numbers come back. We're like, this isn't going to last. And it was exciting because clients that stayed in, kept their money in, they're seeing a bigger return. However, shortly thereafter, what you saw is a spike in e-com, especially. Retailers are putting out so much digital advertising. It's like Black Friday rates all the time, like, but they're still getting a good return. That's because they had a system set up and a way to track everything. So the short answer to that question, Ty, and it's not an easy one to answer, is A, it's going to fluctuate. B, it is still possible to have a smaller campaign be effective, but you need to have everything in place. And then the third part about that is you shouldn't shy away from it, but you need to understand it more now than ever. And that's where we've come in a lot of times. It's Bad Rhino and help people out, whether it's a big budget, $1 million a month, or it's a smallerish budget.
That's a great question. I mean, what kind of budget do you need to even get started with digital marketing?
Well, that's like a little bit of a loaded question because you don't know what you want to get out of it, right? So for e-com, it's going to be a little bit different. For services, professional services, it's going to be a little bit different. Real estate, mortgage, so on and so forth. So you have to understand where your buyers come from. So once you know that, then it becomes math. So let's just say on average, your cost of marketing or cost to acquire a new customer for simplicity purposes is $10. If you spend X amount of dollars, you've gotten little incremental, pieces of new business, whether it was newspaper, radio, so on and so forth. So you can start to like back that out. Then you want to take the data that you do have and apply it to an ad campaign, whether you're on Google, Facebook, wherever. Then you want to take a look at the data, and this is where people get frustrated because they think they can turn it on and stuff comes back. Essentially, you're paying for what the marketplace wants to see, right? So if you put your ad out there and you get all this traffic and it doesn't convert, then you might have an issue with the conversion piece. But you're paying, people are coming, so your ad is working. People are clicking on the ad, they're getting to a page, they're doing something, but they're just not buying. So you take that data, you refine it some more, you make some changes, and then the next time you're going out, whether it's a week or a good solid piece of time like a month, then now you're starting to get conversions. But there's a little other piece. So you're paying for the data to come back, right? So you have to understand what your numbers in your business are, what your revenue is, what a new customer brings to you over the lifetime, and how much you're willing to pay to acquire that customer. Once you have that information and you start to quote unquote, I hate to say playing around, but it's the truth. You have to, be willing to put a little bit of money out there, get the data, refine that data, and then make sure your ads are updated, make sure everything's there so that the conversions start to come. Because you can't just stick an ad out there and expect to get clients, right? Very few times does that work. And you don't want to waste money or time. So it's always best to kind of have all that stuff on the front end, formulate a plan, know your budget. And sometimes if it's a little bit smaller, it's going to be a little bit slower to get that information. If it's larger, you're going to get that information faster and you can start split testing more ads, which should lead to results if you're doing it properly. So it's a tough question to answer, but you have to know all your front end numbers.
Is that one of the difference? I mean, it seems like, what are some of the main differences in your mind between, traditional advertising and conventional advertising and digital advertising? Because it seems like with digital, what you just described is something that's unique. I mean, your ability to kind of look at these different stages of your funnel, make adjustments quickly with little spin to find out what's working. Seems like a benefit of digital versus traditional. What other benefits are there?
Well, that is a huge one, is that you can adjust on the fly. You can also turn something off. Like if you buy a Super Bowl commercial, you know, you're spending your whatever millions of dollars to advertise there and you get one shot at it, right? Where on digital is you can adjust on the fly, like you said. And I think that's the biggest advantage. Like you can turn things off. I think people get frustrated when it doesn't happen right away. So you have to set the proper expectations along with having the numbers that I mentioned before and walk them through a journey, right? And we've done that where you're like, all right, here's where stuff should start to happen. You know, within a couple of weeks, this is where we start to get data that we can actually act upon. And if you're doing everything properly, you can report back. But let's just say you have an ad that has a great copy, but the picture doesn't work. And how do you know the picture's not working? Well, you have the same copy with 6 or 7 pictures, or as many as you want. But let's say 3 out of the 7 are getting a lot of clicks. Okay, people resonate with that image. Then you could shut the other 4 ads off because they have the same copy and the same headline. And then you can maximize the clicks that you're getting on those. And then you start to analyze the next phase. And then you just keep rinsing and repeating that process until you refine it. And once you have an ad that hits, you just ride that thing until it doesn't work anymore. I see the old adage, just, you know, ride that thing into the ground. But as long as it's producing an ROI, you're not going to have a problem with that.
Marty, which channels do you think are the most effective ones to start getting into digital? Or if you're already into digital, what channels should absolutely be in your arsenal that you're advertising on?
So the first 2 are Google and Facebook by the sheer volume. If I had to say, like, you're only going to do one, you're going to pay more on Google for sure. But if you only wanted to do one and you didn't weren't really interested in the social piece of it, you should just go to Google at first. The second one is Facebook. It's just by sheer numbers. They're the biggest 2 out there, right? So you have to be on them in some way, shape, or form. I love YouTube. I think YouTube is great because you can get a lot of views actually easily, and I'm not going to say cheaply because it takes time and strategy, but relatively inexpensively, let's say, that you can advertise over competitors or similar content very quickly, right? It doesn't take long to kind of get that rolling. Now, if your things don't convert, that's a different story, but you can get some traction pretty quickly. But again, YouTube's owned by Google, right? And then the same thing with Instagram is owned by Facebook. So what I always do, and I always stress with my team, is that we want to talk to clients and say, let's maximize the dollars that you have, right? Let's start talking about those things. And the way you can do that is hitting up all the retargeting options that are out there and the smaller networks that are out there, where you can hit somebody with a nice little ad in the middle of the New York Times or Washington Post or somewhere else on Yahoo or MSN or Fox News, CNN, wherever. And the way those things work is they click on your original ad, they might forget about you or didn't finish an opt-in form or purchase. And then that retargeting kicks in across all those networks. And you can take your budget dollars and almost stretch them a little bit. I'm not saying dollar for dollar, and I'm not saying you can just do everything with small budgets. But at the same time, you know, parsing that out at the beginning and understanding where your numbers are and what ads are working, getting something to follow somebody around the internet and kind of hit them in the quote unquote middle of funnel where they might have clicked on your ad, but they didn't finish anything. They might even still have that window up on their desktop or on their phone. And you're hitting them with another piece saying, oh yeah, hey, have you seen this? And it's like, oh yeah, I didn't buy that, or I didn't, finish that out. So it's really making everything kind of dance together. But if I was just starting out, you want to start with a Google or Facebook because you can set up those ads. You're going to see something. I mean, I can't really speak in, quickly, but you're going to see data and information faster than you will anywhere else. And that's most important.
Well, you mentioned retargeting. How does retargeting work?
Sure. So if you've ever heard the term pixels, right? And if you're not using pixels, you want to make sure that you have all those pixels, on your right landing pages, on your websites. So you want to install those. And what happens is when you click on that piece, it might, or that piece of information, or even a certain page on your website or a certain landing page, it sends a signal back to Facebook or Google or any of the other ad networks that you're advertising on. And then that signal, what you can do is remarket off of that, right? So you have a profile, whether you like it or not online, there's a profile. And some of it's hooked to your cell phone, some of it's just hooked to your everyday internet use. And then when you click on that ad, or you click on your website, even if I just researched on Google, which is a great way to segue into something a little bit different as well, is that I just find you on a Google search. And I say, wow, Ty looks like he runs great business. I'm going to need business credit. It's really interesting. I click on that. Now, the next thing I see is I log into Facebook or Instagram and I see an ad for Ty's information. And I'm like, whoa, how did that happen? That's the pixel firing, right? So that retargeting thing, it all works within those networks, and there's multiple ones, and I'm not going to get into all the other technology that goes into it. But on face value, the remarketing piece is what people feel that they're following you around, right? When you feel like, oh man, I saw their ad here, I saw their ad there. That's all it is the information on that pixel talks to the other ones. And then when you go on their other network, you see the same ad because they know you already visited the website and you came in organically, which is a huge lead. And then just remarkets to you all around the internet. Sometimes it feels a little weird. Sometimes when you see it, you're like, oh, I'm glad I got that reminder.
So you talk about sales funnel. Let's talk about what we consider to be top of funnel, or getting, cold traffic or leads in your funnel. What are some of the most effective types of ads that you see work really well? Because I see, for us, giving away free guides, what we call lead magnets, right? Guides, stuff like that works well. But I see everybody doing a little bit of a different thing. So what do you find works really well ad type for your clients?
You should always make an offer, like you just said, some sort of lead magnet, some sort of PDF that they can download where they have to give you a piece of information or at least visit your website. Because if they at least visit, you can remarket to them. If you do require, some sort of opt-in to get that, an email and name, now you have a lead that you can then email, right? So you always want to get something for that ad. Some people focus too much on, well, we need to just get sales, sales, sales. And like you said, you have the top of the funnel. Like, let's introduce somebody to our services that's highly targeted, that's more than likely going to buy, or they fit our client avatar of who we sell to and who our clients are. So at the top, I've seen a variety of things. I mean, I think those things have changed so much. I still think the lead magnet works. Some sort of PDF, some sort of really high quality piece of information. I also like to see like a video series where you let them know that you're going to email them the other two parts of this video, because then you get their permission there to then email them, which is more powerful. Now you have them in a captive audience. It's just in their email. And if you do it right, that first thing could be anything. Could be an offer, could be a discount, could be information, whatever it might be. I like in e-commerce now, most of the time when you get there, they ask you if you want 15% off, just give them your email, right? And it's very simple the way they do it. And it used to be like, it always felt cumbersome and weird. And now it's just kind of like seamless in there. And that's working. I mean, that's working for just about anybody. Hey, would you like free shipping? No? Okay, then click here. And that sort of stuff when you're at the top of funnels, you just want to get people acclimated, in my opinion, to who you are, what you do. So if it's a service thing, you're probably going to give some information. If it's an e-com type thing where you're selling products, t-shirts, etc., you want to give them something to pull out that credit card. Hey, it's free shipping today and today only. Hey, if you want 25% off, give us your email. We'll send you a coupon code. Stuff like that really does help at the top. Once you get a little bit further down, if they're still engaging, email still is king and queen and everything else. And texting is also really high up there, where if you can send somebody a text message, they're more apt to do it. But as you get further down, it gets a little bit more complex. And it's really where that retargeting comes in, where you say, hey, thanks for downloading that. Then you can retarget them and say, hey, appreciate that download. And then your second ad now, and now you get into structures of ads. Your second ad saying, thanks for that download. Make sure you come back and check out this or this other thing or whatever it might be that you're offering. But to your point, Ty, like in service industries, information works the best still. Getting them to consume that information right then and there and say, hey, you want more? Give me your email. That process still works, but it's got to be good. Like, you can't just half-ass it, like, and throw something out. Like, people are just going to download a PDF. I think good 30-second type videos where you explain what you do and say, hey, thank you for clicking on this. Really appreciate it. This is what we do, and this is why you saw our ad. We help businesses do this. And if you'd like more information, you can just click below and I'll send you 3 more videos on this. And it'll give you a good idea of who we are and what we do. And if you do need us, here are the people we service, something like that. And it's just an intro. It's like that, like you said, that cold traffic, that cold call, if that's all it's replacing in that manner. And it works effectively to this day.
What about congruency? You mentioned before that some
Yeah.
things, break in between that funnel where they may be get really good ad costs of people clicking, but they don't come in and do anything. How important is congruency between what they see in the ad and what they see in the landing page to give you the email address really?
That's a great question, and it's definitely a more advanced type thought. But when a lot of times when we get a new client and they already have some of these things set up, the quickest way to actually start to optimize what they have going on and that they feel that they're losing out, or the person that they hired to do so, or the agency they hired to do so is missing the mark, I would say more than 80% of the time, it's the congruency part. And just to illustrate that is like, if you have that lead magnet, we were just talking about, and let's say you have 6 segments of business and you have 6 different ad sets going out there, and I might be interested in 3 of your business lines, not all 6. But let's say I do number 1 and I see it and I click on it. I'm like, oh, I need this. I take a look at it, I get their information, and then that congruency is screwed up in the retargeting, because all those things need to have time set up. So you have different pixels for certain things, like we were talking about before. You want to make sure that is the right pixel that you have on there. Then you also want to make sure if they click on, number 1, they get number 1 information afterwards, either in their email or however else you're following up with them. I've seen large companies where you click on something and you would think like, oh, they have a ton of resources. And I'm like, why am I getting the number 3 business information? And it confuses the buyer, and you don't have time for that anymore. People don't really they don't wait for that. Go, maybe they made a mistake. Let me go back to the website. They're like, who are these clowns? Especially if no one knows who you are. So the congruency that's just one example. There's multiple things where the imagery, the colors, all those things need to be the same throughout, because it produces some comfort level that ultimately somebody's going to buy from you. That's something that we need another hour to talk about, but those are like the highlights. Is just make sure everything matches up, especially if you're running multiple ads. If you're just running one, just make sure that if you put the copy on there that's selling X, that the information you send is still X, and then the follow-up is still about X. You're not saying, hey, I need a new mortgage rate, and then sending them credit card information, that sort of information. So
What are some other things that you guys do that, people come in from other digital agencies, they're not succeeding? Like, what are some of the most effective proven strategies that you've really found to maximize people's ad spend where they really get good results?
yeah, and it's funny. It's a great follow-up question to the last one, because congruency is huge. People are like, where are my gaps in my funnel? And then you open that up and you're like, well, this is why you're wasting too much money here, and this is why your retargeting is, because this ad is retargeting to a whole different service. Like little things like that, because it does get complex. The longer I'm in this, and we talked about like how fast things are moving earlier in the podcast, and it's like one of those things. Like it used to be, sound like I'm just the old guy in the room, right? Used to be so simple, right? And it was like really A and B. Then you introduce mobile, and that's another layer, right? Then you have certain UI, UX concerns with your website, landing page, and the interacting of when you get on those things. And those are issues, those are issues that you have to address. So, tried and true things is going back to the original thing that I said is, know your cost to acquiring a new customer. I don't care if you're running newspaper ads or print ads or events. Know how much did it cost you to go to those 4 events every year? Well, we went to 1 per quarter, and it cost us $30,000 per event to not only attend, and then another $15,000 to send the team, so $45,000. So, okay, so what you want to be able to do is how many new clients per event did you get? And going back to those numbers, right? And then working out. And that's been the one thing that has always stayed consistent in 18 years of running ads for me, is having somebody understand where their numbers are and what they need to do to get the same type of interaction online. Sometimes they don't like the answer. Like, hey, it's going to cost you $100 per lead to get there. But your lifetime value is $2,000. So you really shouldn't necessarily care about that. But that's what your cost is. So maybe you have to raise your rates. Maybe you have to change a few things. But going back to those original numbers, that's where the simplicity is, because then it just becomes data and then scaling, right? And changing ad copy and changing the imagery, because the numbers are there. And once the numbers are there and you have them tied down, now Facebook will change it. That'll create fluctuations. Google will change the algorithm. That will create fluctuations. But really understanding your business numbers and how you want to acquire those customers and what you're willing to pay for them. Once you get that down, then you just test, run, take your successes, and then scale them. And it's as simple as that. And that's the only tried and true thing, is just understand your numbers.
You know, Marty, we talked about leads in the beginning of the funnel, and somewhere in between you mentioned somewhere about, middle of the funnel. And we talked about what works good in the cold leads in the beginning of the funnel. What do you mean by middle of the funnel? Like, what do you do for like brand awareness? And what do you see that's effective there of people that might already be in your email sequence, but then you start marketing them something else to kind of prompt them to buy?
Sure. So, everyone has a little bit slightly different terms when you talk about this stuff. So let me just, qualify what like middle of the funnel, means here. Let's just say you have an online quiz, right? And you fill out the first page, it's 12 steps or 13 steps, and you fill out the first one, and then you're like, phone rings, or I have to pick up my child, or I gotta make dinner or whatever. And you don't finish that. So then remarketing there is getting somebody to kind of come back to that process, right? And I'm sure another digital marketer would have a different idea of what middle of the funnel is, right? So like you have somebody in a process, right? So it's the same thing when we're talking about like the lead magnet, then 3 videos, and then maybe they get to that page, but they never put their email in to get the other 3 videos. That's something where you can retarget and do there. That's where you see leaks in ad spend, right? So with a simple retargeting campaign, getting somebody to come back to the spot that they were pretty close. Sometimes you just have to take them to the top of the funnel again, but they're more apt to come back because they're familiar with you. On the brand awareness, it kind of works the same way, where while I'm a big fan of just getting website clicks via Facebook, because they're relatively inexpensive, and you just get people to click on your website just to see what's going on, right? It could be anything, and now they're pixeled, and now you can advertise to the people that visited your website. Another way to do that in the middle of the funnel is, have you ever gone back to YouTube and you go back to the video, even though you closed your laptop or your phone, and that video is still 3 minutes and 53 seconds in when you stopped it, right? And as soon as you go back to YouTube, it's, right there at 3:53. Oh, this is convenient. You don't have to fast forward or anything. It's the same type of concept of where that middle of the funnel is. It's kind of like a pause button. Like, what's going on in here? Why aren't people finishing? And most of the time it's because people are ADD, for lack of a better term. We all are, it's just the technology. Like, you jump back and forth. And that's what I mean by the middle. They get there, they start something, they stop, go do something else. And we want to get them back to that point and then have them go through the rest of the process.
Great stuff today, man. Where can everybody go that's learning to be able to learn more about you guys, about Bad Rhino, and what you're doing to get such stellar results for your clients?
Absolutely. BadRhinoInc.com. So it's as simple as that. So you can check that out. We have a full blog on there. It's got hundreds of posts on there, and it goes back quite a few years. You can even look up some historical stuff, and we're going to have a new resource center on there in a couple of weeks with a lot of video explanations on what we do and how we do it. But you can just search from there, and we're on all social networks at, obviously, BadRhinoInc.com. And find us there. If you want, I offer this on every podcast. If you have a specific question that I brought up, because I know some of this was talked at like a surface level, just email info@badrhinoinc.com, put Ty's podcast in there, and just ask the question. We'll get back to you. It may not be instantaneously, but we'll get back to you.
Awesome, man. Thanks again for coming on. This was very enlightening.
Awesome, Ty. I appreciate it.
So everybody listen, this is the key to success. It's the key to scaling. I can't think of a large public or privately owned company off the top of my head that's not using digital ad spend in order to stay the size that they are. And I can't think about companies that have went into that space and become big that haven't used digital ad spend to be able to scale. But what's interesting is I also find that this is how a lot of startups reach exponential growth very quickly, is that they master digital ads. But the reality is it's tough to do on your own. I can tell you that when I started doing our own Facebook, man, it literally became a full-time job. And by literally, I mean, I had to hire somebody, and all they do full-time is just manage Facebook. Cause like Facebook's like, I think Facebook's drunk. Like they just do crazy stuff and they change everything. Everything works and it stops working. It was a nightmare. And so eventually I'm like, I'm done. I can't do this. I got to hire somebody else to run our digital marketing, to run it all. And then he only does Facebook now, because it's a nightmare. Facebook's drunk. I don't know what's going on. So the reality is that doing this on your own is really tough and it's very expensive. You have to be able to hire people just to do the work when you really get up and going. And then at that point, you know, you could often spend less money hiring another agency to do it for you. And Bad Rhino has a great reputation in the space for doing just that, for helping you get into digital marketing or digital ad, or also come in and get into digital marketing and improve it if you're already in. If you're already in digital marketing now, they can help you improve where you haven't got results, and they can help you get in initially. So whatever it is you're looking to do, if you're looking to advertise on Google, if you're looking to advertise on Facebook and YouTube and LinkedIn and all these cool places, then you really need to get more information to learn how to do it. You can get that at badrhinoinc.com. That's Bad Rhino Inc., short for incorporated.com, and schedule a consultation with these guys. I don't think, I mean, Marty, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think it costs anything for them to sit with you, go through and help you develop your own unique strategy and talk to you about what's involved there. So all you have to do is get with them, info at badrhinoinc.com, or just visit them online for a bunch of really cool resources as well at badrhinoinc.com. So thanks everybody for tuning in. Make sure you visit badrhinoinc.com so you can master digital marketing. Thanks everybody. Have a great day.